Even if it sucks, write anyway. Even if you feel no motivation, write anyway. Even if it's
Ooh.
hard, write anyway. Just sit down and put words on paper, or so to speak. And even if it doesn't flow, just keep doing it until something clicks. There's never any time where productivity is wasted. If you're producing something, it is still productivity. And you can always go back and make it better later.
This is the CritRPG Podcast, your one-stop shop for everything lit RPG, progression fantasy, and Royal Road. Hi everyone, and welcome to the CritRPG Podcast, the only podcast that has a blue logo but still invites people who like black and red. With me today is Hannibal Forge, author of Cataclysm Rising and Reclaimer and many other cool stories on Royal Road that will be out with Aethon soon. Am I right?
Aethon, yes. I have two series signed with Aethon. I have Reclaimer and I have System Incursion.
Ooh. Well, then let me ask you how you're doing.
Yeah. When you say how I'm doing, do you mean mentally? Do you mean progression-wise? Do you like what are we talking about here?
This is the American how are you doing?
I
Where you
don't
just
know what that
expect a
means.
good and then you move on. Like, I know it's weird. No. Do you know what I'm talking about, right?
I really don't, to be honest. You've lost me completely.
Have you been to the States before?
Yeah, a few times, but Americans are weird and I don't really pay attention to nomenclature.
Well, thank you for coming to this podcast. I'll see you next time. No. So Americans, they do this thing where they ask, how are you doing, as a way of greeting, not as a way of actually.
Oh, it's
how
like
are you doing?
no. Like in Australia, like we're very literal people. So like you can say "How you going" as like a hello, but in Australia, if someone goes "How you going," you go, "Oh yeah,
Yeah,
not
exactly.
bad."
Yeah.
Like, but that's the extent of it. Like you'll walk past someone, "Oh yeah, how you going, mate?" "Yeah, no worries, mate," and that's it. Like they won't even. And this is the thing with our culture. Our culture is ridiculous. Like they won't even like answer. Like we won't even answer each other. Like someone would be like, "Oh, how you going?" You'll just be like, that's it. That's it. Or like you'll be like, "Oh, well, it's not terrible," and that's it. Like
Oh, yeah. That sounds kind of German, actually. Like the best.
Another one is
the
like
best,
living the dream.
Yeah. Like the German standard answer to every question of like how are you doing is like I cannot complain, which is.
Are you like is it okay? So you can't, as in there's nothing to complain about. No, you're not allowed to. Do you need help? Like, can I help you, Hans?
my favorite one was or still remains like, how was your food? And then the correct answer is, it really wasn't terrible.
That's yeah. No, Australians are the same thing. That is 100%. Yeah.
Or one could eat this.
My favorite is Nigerians, man. Nigerians have the best replies to things. Like, like a Nigerian who gets sick is like, my enemies have planned my downfall. Like, like that's so dramatic. And I have this Nigerian friend, and his dad is the most dramatic person on the planet. Like, like I think we were talking about something. I don't know what it was. I think we were talking about like work or some sort of like misfortune or whatever. And he said, "Do not let your enemies overcome you." It's like I've got no enemies.
Man, don't fuck with Nigerians. Holy shit. It was in the first 20 seconds. I hope it really wasn't, because if it wasn't the first 20 seconds, we're going to have to bleep it out. Thanks, Jamie. Jamie's my editor. Hi, Jamie. Because like YouTube doesn't like that. YouTube demonetizes you if you swear in the first 20 seconds of a podcast.
Wait, really?
So yeah. They also we're quite sure that if you bake in that, it like puts you on a lower priority list on the algorithm if you swear on a podcast. So yeah, you know what, it is what it is. It's a long topic. Anyway, so pick one of your books and sell me about it, and sell me on it.
Right. Okay. That's really weirdly hard for me because I. Okay. No.
No, you won't. Okay, good.
I just um I don't know. Read it and figure out if you like it. I'm not good at selling my books, man. Like I write them because honestly, you know what? No, you know what? Actually, honestly,
Yeah,
my books
tell tell me what you like about them.
I write them because I couldn't read them.
Wait, so can you read them now?
No, no, no. well, yeah, they exist. No, what I mean is I write fiction that I wish
Hmm.
existed but doesn't.
Ah, okay. And what kind of fiction do you wish exists?
Um, high fantasy, lit RPG with grimdark elements that highlight the noble bright aspects within them.
Yeah, there you go. That's a seller. Basically, the trick to selling your own book is just talking to people about like, hey, what do you like about them, and then they either like that too or they don't. Right?
Well, I mean, based on on my user retention, so far it's trending toward the positive. I've had,
Yeah.
uh, though sci-fi does not do well on Railroad. I'm finding.
So you find that out now. Now you've been on this page for like what 5 years?
Yeah, but I mean, like with like a 1 year hiatus here and there.
Yeah. But still, yeah. I love sci-fi. I love my my uplifts and my like cyberpunks,
I love space operas.
space operas. Yeah, amazing. Um, Again, one of my comfort reads is A Long Way to a Small Angry Planet. It's cute, but Railroad doesn't like it at all, and it might sell on Amazon, but it also really might not. It's
Yeah,
weird.
I mean,
It's
I
weird.
love Dune. So for me, like
Mm,
space opera is like a really big thing. Star Wars Extended Universe as well.
mm. Would you? Okay, so would you describe Dune as a space opera?
I think in the greater setting, yes. In the dialed in localization of each novel, probably not. Well, not
Mm,
localization, but the dialed in like setting of each novel, maybe not. But like
mm,
my first exposure to Dune was a novel called Machine Crusade,
mhm.
which is a prequel.
Yeah.
Um, and I think it's a prequel. And it's definitely. I think if from memory, the Machine Crusade is very self-contained, but it's still
Mhm,
space operatic.
mhm,
Um, but then again, one of my favorite anime of all time is Legend of the Galactic Heroes.
mhm,
So
mhm,
take that as you will. I mean, like I love Glyn Stewart's work as well, like the Battle Carrier Avalon, Starship
mhm.
Mage, um, sorry, no, that is Battle Carrier Avalon. What's the other one? God, Duchy of Soul. Sorry, Duchy of Terror. And what's his other series? There's one other one that was really, really good. Peacekeepers of Soul, and
Mm.
he's got one more. I just can't remember the name of it for some reason. But no,
Well,
like he's got a really, really good stable of sci-fi, and it's all hard
mhm,
sci-fi, hard science, very grounded and realistic theories about
mhm,
how stellar warfare would occur. And I
mhm,
find that so fascinating. From like, I prefer my sci-fi grounded in science, or at
mm.
least a scientific theory. I
Science
don't
fiction.
enjoy, yeah, I don't enjoy the low sci-fi, or the soft sci-fi where it's like, oh,
Mm.
it just works like that. It just really irritates me. But I think it's because I'm autistic.
I think I personally I love um, science fantasy, right? Because I just don't have the mind to go out and like research all these things. That being said, like my stuff is kind of it's always like hinting at
Well,
like
I've read Torchbearer. If you
oh
recall, I helped you with it.
I'm very sorry.
I helped you with it.
Yeah, you did. Which version did you read?
Man, this was like a year and a half ago.
Yeah, it must have been version 2. Yeah, version 3 is better thanks to your help.
Okay.
But I right now I'm on a hiatus because I couldn't keep up with my monthly or sorry weekly chapter, and I didn't want to have to stop in the middle of an arc. So now I'm writing the next arc. Yeah,
I get it.
Yeah,
I'm right there with you. I get it 100%.
I still like it. I'm still writing on it. Like it's been slow going because I have so much other shit to do.
Of course.
Right. So I can say this on this podcast. Just today we got an offer for one of my clients for hey, let's talk about a movie deal. So I'm very, very busy, very, very happy about it. But at the same time, it's a lot of work. Yeah. The podcast, obviously, also a lot of work. But I still, every day, I go to bed, go like, man, I wish I could have written more today. So I'm definitely.
Well, I was doing that, and then I spent a week vacationing with Sherdaloon, Haylock, Tavaga, Think Twice, and my girlfriend, and I was roasted for 5 days straight. My girlfriend's laughing in the background. I was roasted for 5 days straight by Sherdaloon and Haylock and Twice about not publishing my books. To the point where it became so Haylock on his Tesla. I'm doxing, sorry, Haylock. On his Tesla, he has a license plate that says "Write," right?
Yeah.
WRITE. Stop laughing. My girlfriend, sorry.
I know.
And yeah, and he was driving in front of me everywhere because I didn't know, because we went to his home city and I didn't know where we're going, and I had my car. And I'm driving behind Haylock, and everywhere I drive, I just see "Write" in big block letters in front of me. And when we pulled up at this place to eat, and I got out of the car and I said to him, no, sorry. We pulled up, we went to eat, we came out, and I called over to Haylock and I said, driving behind that license plate is going to go in my suicide note. And dark humor, I apologize. And I didn't hear the response, but Think Twice, who, by the way, Lewis is one of the nicest human beings on the planet. He's
amazing.
He's a genuinely lovely person. But Think Twice makes this amazing callback that I didn't hear it. They told me in the car because I was on the phone with them while we were driving on Bluetooth, obviously. And Think Twice apparently had this hilarious clapback where it goes, "I'd worry about that suicide note, but that would require Hannibal to publish something."
Nice. Yeah.
Oh I mean, God, I laughed pretty hard, but it was, and he felt terrible, but I thought it was hilarious.
No, it was really good. Like it was really, really awesome. Like this is sound like super, super weird, but I think I'm like adjacent on the other side of that circle of friends because like I've hung out with Haylock and Shirt a lot, and I wish I could have hung out with them more. But distance. Also, man, I'm getting really jealous. Like I really would have loved to like be there. That sounds awesome because all of those people are my favorite people.
Yeah, Haylock and Sherdaloon and Twice, and I mean Rano Z as well. I met Rano Z last year at PAX. He's amazing. He's a author of Chrysalis. He's a fantastic guy.
Yeah.
These people are just like so wonderful. Like they were roasting me for the whole week, but like it was motivational roasting. Like, having someone like Sherdaloon who almost inarguably is right now probably the biggest name in lit RPG. Aileron Kong is like the father of lit RPG in a way, but Sherdaloon I'd say is probably the one who's kind of like sitting on the throne right now with Hugh fights.
Matt Dinneman is like also there.
Dinneman. Oh, and Dinneman and Sherdaloon are the same person according to Twice. Like if you ask Lewis, like they're the same person, and also Jack Black at the same time. Sherdaloon. I've never read DCC, and Sherdaloon and Haylock are both like, you need to read DCC like yesterday. But having someone like Sherdaloon sit down and be like, "This is really good," like with your book, is like it's.
It's like, so Shirt has no taste. No, I'm kidding. Like Shirt is one of the most encouraging people I know. He remains to this day one of the biggest subscribers to this Patreon.
Sherdaloon is prolific for his sheer. I mean, you know what? And Zogarth, he gets a rap because Zogarth is very unfiltered. But I would actually say that Zogarth is also an incredible. And I didn't mean to cut you off, and I apologize for that. But I will. You just made me think of this. Zogarth is also incredibly encouraging. He's surprisingly positive and helpful. Melis as well, despite being a menace. Melis the Menace is actually a very helpful person as well. And Slifer, I've got to call out Aaron Shee, despite being a cooked Zoomer, is probably one of the most bluntly encouraging human beings I've met. Like he doesn't hold back, and he's very blunt, but he's blunt with good intentions, and his let's call it socially
direct.
Yeah, his take on how to give advice can definitely rub some people the wrong way, but I think that he has very good knowledge of what he's talking about, and he's a very encouraging person to be around, because he'll just tell you, like he literally told me once before, you're leaving so much money on the table, stop being a fucking idiot, just write.
Yeah. Like I don't know who was, but yeah, for me, to be honest, like I'll be quite upfront about this. Like it's not the kind of style, like when I spend too much time around this like blunt directness, I don't like who I become, and it really like it weighs down on my mental health, right? So like I know all these people, I love them. Like Zorga was on his podcast, it was hilarious, even though I did have to like cut out a little bit here and there. But yeah, it was great. But at the same time, I also know that like, I mean, I've been in the order Discord on the voice a couple of times.
Which, by the way, for those who don't know, the Order Discord is definitely not a super secret squirrel Discord for writers that is owned by Kanadaj, and I'm definitely not one of the admins.
It is owned by Kanadaj. And like, what are you saying? Are you making any sort of like mafiosi allegations here?
No, no. No. I'm just making a joke. It's just it's an old joke from when we created the server, where we were like, let's make a super secret squirrel, but we wanted to avoid
the whole mafiosi angle. Yeah, I know. Which is, by the way, a very, very bad name for a Discord community.
Yeah, it's a terrible idea. No, I mean, the Order's whole purpose, and remains its purpose, is just fundamentally to help people improve writing, which is why we invite people like in legions at this point. It's not like it's not even really gated per se. It's just like we put up the vote, and if someone, and you know, there are times when the admins will come together and be like, hey, we'll look at this person. We've had some stuff about them. You know, are they going to be detrimental? Blah, 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 blah. But we take the whole democratic approach very seriously. Obviously, it is more of an oligarchy because the admins will have veto power. But we consider ourselves custodians more than anything else. Like, we're just there to try and make sure the community stays safe. People have a good space. And that's why we have people like Rhett in there, Moonquill, like... We want to keep it so it's a place where authors can progress, where they can advance, where they can make connections, where they can learn the business, learn how to write, learn how to perfect their craft, and everyone benefits. It's a what's the thing that Tev likes to say? A rising tide raises all ships.
Yeah, exactly. I like that. If you knew what I was cooking, no, like I very much subscribe to that. Like, there's I mean, that's the reason why I mean, I can shut this out. Like, it's my own podcast. I can do whatever the fuck I want. Why we did Go Pop Yourself, right? What I want to achieve with that page is to get people to, if they're really set on self-pubbing, right? I want them to find good narrators who will read their novel for either royalty share or per finished hour or a combination or whatever. I want them to be able to find editors and cover artists, all those people, because I still think that you need neither a publisher nor an agent to be successful in this space, and I want to keep it that way. I don't want it to become one of those places where you have to know the right people in order to succeed, because that like robs us of millions of very well written stories every year. At the same time, I mean, I'm an agent. I would be dumb for me to not say this, but there's a thing where if you don't have enough time or you don't have the marketing skills, and believe me, people tend to overestimate their marketing skills and then fall flat on their face. That's why people like, Aethon exists. That's why Time is Wind exists. That's why like all these publishers exist. I'm not gonna name them all
We
right
got,
now
what is
because
it, like Moonquill, Aethon, Selkie,
and Moonquill,
Royal
yeah,
Guard,
uh,
Timeless Winds, Mountaindale,
even
um,
Podium,
Podium. I mean, yeah,
yeah,
look, Podium has a bad rap, but
yeah,
for their old corporate shenanigans. But
yeah,
from what I've heard, and I'm not shilling
mm,
Podium, but from what I've
mm,
heard, they have been getting better about understanding that they've been mishandling
yeah,
the lit RPG community, because obviously lit RPG writers are not like Tradpub, right? We're basically fundamentally lit RPG writers are the punk movement of fiction.
yeah.
So it's very much
Very conservative punk fiction, punk, but yes.
yeah, but it's we're the alt rock
Mm,
version of fantasy fiction.
mm, mm,
And but I mean, like, then again, you have stuff like Brandon Sanderson in one of his lectures calling a lit
mm,
RPG saying that it's a you know rising genre.
yeah,
And I don't want to get too much into this because obviously we're going to be talking about the books or whatever, but
that's cool.
I've actually had this discussion at length, again, with the people I was hanging out with, and my perception on this is the lit RPG bubble will probably last another 10, 15 years.
Mm-hmm.
And then it'll become just as saturated as romantasy, as traditional fantasy, etc. But the thing we have going for us right now is that it is a very misunderstood subgenre. And when I say that, I mean that it appeals to a very specific niche audience type, which is gamers that enjoy high agency fiction.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas a lot of traditional fantasy, it does have agency, but it also tends to subvert agency in favor of prophecy.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas a lot of lit RPG is about escaping prophecy. It's about self-actualization, self-determination, the pure pursuit of personal growth and control over your personal growth and personal direction, which is why, and again, this is why so many readers in the RPG, in my opinion, love it, is because we come from RPG backgrounds. We come from The Witcher. We come from World of Warcraft. We come from Guild Wars. Like these, a lot of the stuff is MMO based, where it's all about, or D&D based, where it's about making your own adventure and choosing what you do next. Which is why this fundamental connection of agency and lit RPG is so prolific, because it's based at its core in a self-determining a self-determining setting where you decide what happens next. It's a create your own story. So in my opinion, that's why lit RPG readers are so fanatical, and they are fanatical about agency. It's because they read lit RPG specifically to find that self-insert fantasy of choosing your own path.
Yeah, and in the end, winning. So I think that's not a hot take at all. I think it's very, very true. I do have the opinion that it's never going, like the bubble is never going to last 10 years. Never. The world is accelerating way too fast for that. If you're looking at Korea, like we're generally about like 5 to 10 years behind Korea, right? And in Korea, like at the point where we are at right now, where the first books are coming into the mainstream and the first books are getting published by like big pubs, Korea had about like 3 more years left before it got like really, really big. But I mean, like there's still webtoon still exists and that sort of stuff, and it's not like people in Japan are not able to like get into this market anymore. The pipeline still exists, but it has become very mainstream.
Well, I'd say the difference though is culture. In the West,
Yes.
especially in the Americas, which is one of the largest Western consumers of the RPG,
Mm.
being a nerd is still considered a bad thing. It's not.
Is it?
It is a lot more chic now. Like, and I'm sure I'm going to get some hate for this. I'm probably going to get people like, you don't know what the fuck you're talking about. But like, the reality is that the mainstream population of America, it's still those 2000s high schools. It's still the idea of like, if you're a nerd, you're a dork, you're a geek, you're a loser, whatever it is. And yes, like, as much as people hate the show, Big Bang Theory really helped break nerd culture into the mainstream. But also the IT crowd, but like the Stranger Things, yeah. But the real, I mean, also what do you call it? Riverdale, whatever it is. I never actually watched it, but I heard it's very nerd-centric. But
Mm.
the reality is that nerd culture is still a niche. It's still very much a niche. It's a bigger niche, but it's still a niche. And until the societal perception on quote unquote being a nerd, which is a basement dwelling, glasses wearing, unshowered peasant, vanishes, we're never going to reach a point where there is a mainstream acceptance of that kind of fiction, simply because it is outside the scope of comfort or normalcy for most people. And that's, to me, that's not a bad thing, because it just means our audience is more compacted, there's less saturation. The biggest threat to lit RPG, in my opinion, is AI.
Yeah, because so another hot take, or I don't think it's a hot take at all. We've talked about this like a lot, like last year when AI really started to like break through. So I talked about this with several people who know way more about this than I do. I got a friend who staunchly believes that the only reason why AI hasn't written a novel yet, or like a good novel yet, is because there's no money in it. And I looked at him and was like, "Are you insane? Are you really telling to me that there's no money in writing books?" And like, to be honest, like that maybe discredit his opinion, because he obviously doesn't know what he's talking about. He also doesn't know that with the current model of AI is basically autocorrect on crack. So what it does is you enter a thing, and then it kind of tokenizes everything. So it takes every little chunk that you have and converts into numbers that then later get like easier to handle and that sort of stuff. And by doing that, you kind of lose track of the concept of the context, which is, for example, why AI can never answer the question, how many R's are in the word strawberry, right? Because it tokenizes it, and it always says like, oh, it's 2, because there's like 2 R's in berry, but it neglects the one in straw because it's tokenized, right? And it can only focus on one thing. And it doesn't even know what a word is or what the entire word is. It just like looks at this one token and goes like, in that token, there's 2 R's, right? So of course you can patch this out. You can go like, hey, you have to also look at the other tokens to the left and the right when this specific question is asked. But that's not sustainable. Like, you cannot do this because it takes a lot of more computing power, and like it's terrible. Anyway,
ChatGPT just told me there's 3 R's in strawberry.
Awesome. See, they patched it. Like there's just like 3 weeks ago was all the rage, because you could like go on Reddit and look it up, and they would all say like, oh, it's 2. And when you tell Claude like, no, there's more than 2, he's like, I respectfully disagree. Like, okay, cool. So the idea of that AI is intelligent is so false. Like, AI is just like a marketing buzzword.
It has enforced dementia, because it cannot remember, or I guess I should say amnesia, not dementia, but it cannot remember, like, even in a single conversation.
Yeah.
Even LLMs can't remember.
Yeah.
They don't have recollection.
Yeah, it doesn't understand context. It has no recollection, yes, but also it doesn't understand context. It is implicitly unable to understand context, and the only thing that we're doing is, when we say like we expand the context, is we force it to reread more stuff whenever you ask a question.
Correct.
That's what context increase in an AI is, right? So it has no passive memory, like you said, yeah. So asking it to write a novel is completely insane, because it's all context. Every single word that you put down is completely different from the word before and can mean 10 different things, which is why when you tell like, hey, write me a cool little intro for the story, it does something that looks beautiful but lacks all meaning, and people can tell. So I don't think this is going to be a big threat to storytelling in the next 5 or 10 years, but who knows what the future might bring. At the same time, I really hope it's not, because I don't know. I don't want to become, the next Da Vinci, who writes books that Da Vinci, by the way, as a patronized intellectual, right? Who writes books for $500 that only the rich can afford, because it's written by a real human being, right? That's the logical conclusion. The mass market is being controlled by AI, so you do commission work for rich people who want to read like one specific thing and want to be able to tell that they paid a real human being to do this. Same thing.
Well,
building a chair, for example,
the human element of writing, in my opinion, is the most distinctive because it AI lacks stylistic nuance.
Yeah.
And stylistic nuance is what makes people connect with writing. Because if AI wrote everything, it would all be the same. Like it would all be you can change the vernacular, you can change the verbosity of AI, but you cannot change the fundamental structure of how AI incorporates language. And every bit of AI writing is identifiably AI because it follows the same patterns of grammar, the same phraseology, the same like clause and subclause structure in sentences. Like it's very obvious what is AI because it has a very distinct tone.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Because it's very mechanical. It's mechanically perfect writing, but it is soulless writing. Whereas the mistakes, quote unquote, that humans make with punctuation, which are not really mistakes, they're nuance, is what gives writing a soul. Is what gives it a core of existence because it creates individuality in expression.
There used to be a time in Muslim culture, back in the heydays when Europe was a shit pile of steaming feces, and the Arabic world was actually doing quite okay-ish. I mean, obviously it wasn't great, but you know what I'm talking about. They had this. Also, this has been like disproven, and don't get me into like history about this. But the thing that they did was, whenever they made a painting or they built architecture or they made a mosaic or whatever, they put in one or two mistakes because it said only God is perfect, right? So you are not allowed to like create something perfect. You must like put a little like twist into it, and this gives it so much personality. And even if you're looking at like the grand cathedrals that were built like in the 16th century, all of these like gargoyles and the water spewers, the way that they have been built, they tell a story of a real human being who has lived. That this person has lived, and you're asking yourself, okay, what was the story there? And I might be wrong, but I hope that people realize that, or we'll keep realizing that if an AI does that, it just feels off. It just feels off, like, because even if you and I were making up a fantasy story, these people have never been real. We know this, but we know that there's a mind behind it who has thought about these things and who has lived through things. It's our way of connecting with the world. The reader and the author form an hermeneutic circle. With AI, it doesn't happen. But aside from the stylistic points, aside from the philosophical points, AI is just incapable of writing a story. Like it can't. Not in the current large language model system. It is impossible. It may be fixed, maybe found a way in the future, but right now, I wouldn't be too worried about it. And going back to the point we had before, where the RPG will stay kind of like a bubble for a while, I really hope so. But I mean, I obviously have a finger on the pulse of the market, or industry, I should rather say. And there's people coming in from all sides now, right? And we were talking about Podium earlier, and that's kind of like tying a bow on this entire thing. I personally will never try to explain with malice what can be explained by, this sounds weird or dumb, but incompetence. I don't mean it this way. Should maybe say like ignorance. I don't mean this in a bad way, right?
Yeah, do not conflate to malice what can be best explained by ignorance or
Exactly.
a lack of understanding. And honestly, that a little bit of a tangent, but the word ignorance is used so incorrectly because it's always wielded as an insult. Like you're ignorant, but ignorance by definition is simply the lack of knowledge. It's not an active work of malice. It's just you do not understand something, therefore you are ignorant.
Yeah. Or even the work of malice. Hey. Anyway, sorry, that was really bad. I'm sorry, Malice.
Yeah, let's no, Malice. Yeah, no, I get it. I mean, let's transition.
I think can take it. Yeah. Okay, but I can't take it, and I'm a very fragile flower, so please don't insult me. I will break. I mean, I'm trying not to insult anyone because I don't want to be insulted. It hurts, right? But the point there is, so for example, like right now, it's been huge on Facebook. People have talked about it. Robin Sullivan, who I've already had on the podcast, who's an amazing human being, who's doing a lot for authors. I can highly recommend checking her out. And just like me, by the way, she offers free consultation on all contracts. You can get her email address. You can write her, and she has been in this space or in the industry for much longer than I have. And I would always go to her and ask, like, hey, look at this contract. Can you tell me, is there something fishy about it? Right? Like Drew and I, we also offer this, obviously, but we're just all interested in helping authors grow and keeping authors strong. But she came in and she had this like long analysis of Podium's contract, and there's like some clauses in there. For example, Podium, I have seen some contracts where they are asking for life of copyright for print editions. And so what Drew, my colleague in the agency, told me, but completely made sense, and then we later confirmed with Podium, was that what they're worried about is they're printing a bunch of books, they don't sell out, or they just start a new print run, and then you let the contract lapse, you cancel a contract at the end of the 7 years or 5 years or whatever it is, and then they're sitting on a bunch of books that they cannot legally sell because they no longer have the rights to them, but they also can't pulp, right? So they have to don't know what they're doing with them. And I think that this is reasonable, but I've done enough contracts now to know that life of copyright is a very lazy way of handling that. I would say that the lawyers went with a solution that works for TradPub, maybe sometimes, right? But that in this space, and this is coming back to your point from earlier, shouldn't. We're a little bit of like, we're wily like this. We know we don't really need a publisher. We don't need to have these really big contracts necessarily, because there's other people out there who have like the same conditions or better or worse, depending on the book. But these, you can, for example, for this contract, what you can say is like, hey, if any stock remains at the end of this period, you are liable to buy it up to a reasonable amount at cost, and then it's your books and you have to sell them, right? That makes sense. But yeah, I think it's a better solution rather than just carte blanche giving like life of copyright. And
full copywriting series is a huge mistake for authors, because you can always renegotiate a contract after the first couple books, and you can get higher royalties, higher advances, whatever it is.
Yeah.
The more,
the series one, I mean, that's what happens with inflation, right? So, for example, if you sign a series for like 10 books, or like you sign 3 books, but you want to write 10, right? Mm-hmm. And then the book does really well, and there's that's huge inflation, like there was in Germany in 1918, where 1 pound of butter costs like 10,000 German mark, or like, let's say euros, right? 10,000 euros for a pound of butter, or like 20 for a bunch of eggs, just saying randomly. If that happens, and suddenly like your dollar is worth way less, then you're still getting the same $1,000 per book, even though the current price might be 5,000 or 50,000 per book.
Correct.
Right. So
depreciation of value.
Yeah. It's just an advance, obviously. So if the book does well, you're going to earn out anyway. And Podium does offer like higher royalties than most TradPubs I've seen, which makes sense. So it's just the advance, but the royalties are something that you should be able to negotiate at that point, right? Because you can say like, hey, look, I don't need an advance anymore because I've already earned like 2 million off of these book sales.
I want higher royalties.
How about you give me 55% instead of 45%, right?
Yeah, because you're still making more than enough money to justify it, 100%.
Exactly. Yeah, and it's always a balance. And so here's an important thing: I've negotiated with Podium a bunch of times now, And never when I've went to them and we're like, hey, look, this is more reasonable. Can we do this? They've never said no. Never. Right? So they're always open to negotiations. And I wish their contract was more like that from the get-go, right? Because people who don't listen to this podcast and who also don't have an agent or who don't have access to Robin or aren't on the author discords, they might not know this and sign it, and then later on it causes grief for both Podium and the author. Because sure, Podium can go like, oh yeah, well, that's shucks, it's your problem now. But if the author causes a big fuss, then Podium also has an issue.
Yeah,
because
I don't personally think that agents are a necessity in the RPG space. I think that's more about education.
Yeah, exactly.
But I do think when dealing with trad pubs, agents can be very useful.
Oh yeah, let me say this again. Like I always said it before, you don't need an agent in this space. You don't. You shouldn't. You really shouldn't. My job is not to sell your book to Aethon or Podium or anyone. You can just go to them and ask them. They're nice people. Like if you want me to make an introduction, I will glad to do that. You don't need to pay me any money. You can always come to me and I can always do this. If you want to not negotiate, if you don't like negotiations, if you want to go beyond that, if you think like if you're getting really big and you want to get your movie rights done, or you want your comic rights done, or you want to get
an agent. Yeah, you need an agent for negotiating with people, but they have to have the agent themselves needs to have connections too. Otherwise, it's useless.
Yeah, exactly. Right, and this is like, I mean, I'm not going to boast about the connections I have, but I need to offer some sort of value, right? So I think I can say that. Like if in my contract, in Drew's contract, in our agency's contract, I should rather say, it says that if you self-pub, we get nothing, and it's fine with us. We don't want that, right? We only want to take money if we can offer value, because I'm using the money on the book that I get from the book to fly to LA to talk to people there, right? That's what I'm doing. I'm not in this to earn money. I got a very, very, very well-paying job, and I got enough other avenues to like earn cash. I'm doing this because I want to help other people be awesome and not die in starvation while I'm doing that. That's what I'm doing. So yeah, that was the longest agent rant I've ever had in this podcast. But let's ask the second question on the podcast. What do you think?
Sure. Yeah. Let's do
I mean, the cool thing is we've already done like one book that you love, and we've also already done the shout outs. So I think we're good. But what's the best advice you've ever gotten as a writer?
Even if it sucks, write anyway. Even if you feel no motivation, write anyway. Even if it's hard, write anyway. Just sit down and put words on paper, or so to speak. And even if it doesn't flow, just keep doing it until something clicks.
Yeah. Write trash.
There's never any time where productivity is wasted, because if you're producing something, it is still productivity. And you can always go back and make it better later.
But Hannibal, reading the trash I wrote yesterday hurts so much, I don't want to do it.
Toughen up, pussy.
Let me just put this into my Australian to English translator. Okay. Yeah, I know that sucks. But I'm sure that if you do it enough, you will overcome this issue. Okay, yeah, good. I got it. Yeah.
Basically. I mean,
sorry.
Yeah. Look, no, yeah, it's the usual Australian nomenclature is take a spoonful of concrete and harden the fuck up. But it's weird. Like, I don't really respond to like positive reinforcement. I think I think Australia just messed me up. But like, I don't really respond. Like, people like, oh, you can do it. You've got this. It's like, oh, yeah, thanks. Whereas like, my friends saying, hey, can you hurry up and publish, you fucking idiot? Like, you're leaving money on the table, stopping a moron. That's a lot more like, okay, well, shit, they got a fucking point.
Yeah, and like, so people often think that motivation or like motivational stuff is just like, hey, yeah, you can do it, but that's like based on nothing. That's not tied to anything, right?
It's hollow.
I love ominous positivity, right? Right to spite all the haters, that sort of stuff. But
I look for dopamine from reader comments. I don't look for dopamine from my colleagues. I look for my colleagues. I look for like honesty and bluntness, which is why, like I said, I love Slifer, because He
Yeah.
doesn't, and Melis as well. They don't hold back. They just tell you you're literally bankrupting yourself for no reason. Zogarth as well.
Yeah, like definitely. I personally, I mean, like I said, like it's not my style, but what I like as a style is the same thing but framed in a positive way, right? I can tell you like the same thing by saying, you got these people believing in your stuff. This is the amount of money you could be making. You're not doing that right now. Why are you doing this to yourself?
Yeah,
Love
pretty
yourself, you
much.
asshole. Right?
Yeah, I mean it's essentially the whole idea of like
Yeah.
you're robbing yourself by not
Yeah, exactly.
working.
And it's like it's just a way of like, how do you interpret words in your head? So I mean, when Zogarth tells you like, by the way, you're leaving money on the table, you fucking idiot, right? Do you focus on you're leaving the money on the table, and also I care about you enough to tell you this, right? Or do you focus on the you're a fucking idiot? My brain automatically goes for you're a fucking idiot, and I feel bad for a day, and I think Zogarth doesn't like me and hates my guts, right? So I feel like shit for days, until I like get out of this funk. Like it's very very early trauma, but
I
yeah,
don't really have. I have a natural filter against that stuff because I
yeah,
have too much of an ego. So like I can accept when I'm doing something stupid. If someone says, "Hey, you're doing something uh, mentally deficient," I'll be like, "Yeah, okay, fair enough." But
nice.
if uh, if they call me a fucking idiot, that just
Mm,
washes off my back because
mm,
I know that I'm very intelligent, so I don't really
mm. Oh,
take offense to that.
I know that too. Like, I know that you're intelligent. Not for me. It was like, I, I very much, uh, I moved a lot when I was a kid, and I got
Mm-hmm.
like ripped out of friend groups a lot, and so like losing friend groups is for me is like it's like torture, complete torture, right? So,
Oh, I'm the same way with that. I
yeah,
have huge
yeah,
abandonment issues.
yeah, right. So, I I always like try like listen to these things and like this is some other stuff I don't need to talk about in this podcast, but like yeah, the idea remains that I I don't have a filter like that. For me, it's very very hard and it's kind of ouchy. And like I'm not selling like MLSD or Zogarth or anyone to change. Like no, they're fine as they are. They really are. I just
It's an
It's just my
adaptation thing.
decision.
Yeah, you've just got to
Yeah,
figure out how to deal
yeah.
with it.
It's just my decision if I engage with them and how often, right? And I
We
would,
waffle a lot, don't we?
yeah, it's
No,
fine.
we
It's perfectly fine.
we waffle over so much. It's
This
like
is
you've
part of
asked
this
me two
podcast.
questions. You've asked me two questions.
This is part of this podcast. This is like part of the style.
Oh, that's funny.
I am so happy with this. This is perfectly fine. Like the worst podcasts are the ones where I ask like one question and then people like have like a 2-word answer and I give them another question. They give me like a 3-word answer and then the podcast is over. So this is great. Don't feel bad about it.
Okay. Next question.
Okay. Wow. Thanks. Shot through the heart and you're to blame.
Well, we already talked about this in a way. Like this is stuff we've already covered.
Yeah. Well, the next question is like, we haven't talked about this, I don't think. Not in that way. And that is, what is one thing that you would change if you could go back and change it right now,
I'd
or
keep
something
writing.
that you'd learned in your stories about like the craft of writing itself?
I'd keep writing. I stopped writing for like 2 years. I would keep writing.
Well, that's also me.
Yeah, I know, but like
But
I literally would be.
hmm,
I hope Brett doesn't see this because I know he's just going to be like it. Like but it's true. Like I would literally probably have like 6 books out by now. With the pace that I write at when I'm actually writing, I'd probably have 6 or 7 books out by now.
yeah.
I've been writing since 2021. I started Reclaimer in 2022. If I had kept writing, I would probably be living in a large house somewhere, raking in royalties and not having to wage slave anymore. Like I'm not. Look, how do I put this in a way that doesn't make people want to roast me? I don't believe that I'm anything different or special or somehow like like this God's gift to writing. I just think that I have a good series. I have a good premise. I have good ideas. Their ideas have been received well by a small subject pool of diehard audience, and in many ways, while Amazon and Royal Road are completely disconnected and they have very different metrics and very different success paths, Royal Road is a good sample for how something is going to be received in the large, simply because it gives you, at least when it comes to lit RPG, simply because it gives you like the average Joe reader experience. And Royal Road readers are very, very hypercritical. So
Mm-hmm.
so I believe that if I'd already been writing, I probably would be retired by now. I'd probably be making a lot of money, and I'd probably be a lot happier. So yeah, if I could change one thing, genuinely, if I could go back and make myself do one thing, it would be to keep writing.
Mm-hmm. Okay. You missed the point of the question.
Oh, did I? Oops, sorry.
Yes. Yes. No, I mean, like, this is fine. I mean, but that is really what you said like a while ago. Keep writing is. It's always easy to like regret these things, right? So
I wrote. Hindsight is 2020.
Yeah. In many cases, a lot for a lot of authors, it is really 2020 because that's when they started writing. Anyway, I wrote the first lines of Torchbearer in 2020, on a train. And if I had not just like written like one chapter, pushed it online, and never thought about it again until like 2 years later, then I think I would probably, or like not probably, I would maybe be up there with the Halocks and the Shortloons and the Think Twices. But I didn't, and that's fine. Right, I did other stuff that was more important to me at the time because I had other shit to do that actually made my life a lot better in different ways. Now, people often focus on money. I personally have lived at the edge of poverty, and I thought it was just fine. I've also, my parents weren't poor; were like middle class, upper middle class, and like also lots of privilege. So I've no kind of like this like ups and downs. But money is fuel for your car. You don't want to drive a car to buy fuel. You want to drive a car to drive a car, or to
Correct.
get from A to B. Right.
I mean, I grew up poor as dirt, so
yeah.
And no, I'm not. Partially because of my mother's work, partially because of my own employment. So I'm very much self-made. I earn a pretty solid. I earn about 110 US a year after tax. So like I'm doing well, but it's not as well as I could be doing if I was actually publishing and successful.
But why do you care?
Not even remotely as well as I could be doing.
Why do you care?
Because money. So I was with the guys when we were on our trip, and we went to look at this house that Sheldon was looking at buying. It was like $10 million. Well, 9 million, 10 million with the additions you would want to make. It was this place called Skyfall, just like the James Bond movie, and it's this absolutely stunning, beautiful, like palatial mansion. It's a villa, really. It's like a Roman, like an old school Roman villa written in modern times. It's so big that the two halves of the house are connected by a gigantic glass sky bridge. But it has an infinity pool overlooking the city, and it's just this gorgeous, gorgeous piece of property.
So he's finally going to get his cocaine mansion. Nice.
No. He didn't. He didn't end up buying it. No. But we were up there, and we were looking at it, and I just had this moment of like, this is what I want. I don't like not the mansion. I mean, yes, I want that too, but I want the freedom to just do shit like that. I don't want to be constrained by a schedule. I don't want to be constrained by 9 to 5, or in my case, 2000 to 0430. I want to be able to just say, you know what, fuck it. Today I'm going to Paris. Like, and I want the freedom to be able to do that. So for me, money isn't about, fancy toys, which yes, I would absolutely turn my car into the Batmobile, but like, it's not about that. It's about the freedom to wake up whenever you want, to pursue something you love as your fulfillment, and then to say, you know what, I'm going to write a book today, but I'm going to write a book in France. I'm going to write a book in Germany. I'm going to write a book in Sweden. I'm going to write a book in Los Angeles. Like, it doesn't matter what you want to do. You don't have to be disgustingly rich for this either. You can just be like decently wealthy, but like, a good income from writing books enables freedom.
Mm.
And as a lit RPG author, with agency being the biggest focus of most stories, it's a weirdly poetic tie-in, because for me, money doesn't represent happiness. To me, happiness is freedom, and money is how you achieve that.
Mm.
Because, I mean, you can
This is,
always have
yeah.
more money, and you'll always be poorer than someone else, unless
Yeah.
you're Elon Musk. But
Oh, he can be poorer than someone else soon, but
Soon,
that's
yeah.
a whole different topic, because he already is. But it's very, very hard to explain. Go ahead.
But yeah. We're not talking about, like, we're both talking about assets in that case. I get it. But like
Yeah.
the whole point that I'm making is, like, money doesn't buy happiness, freedom buys happiness, and money buys freedom.
Yeah. It's again. So I'm gonna say that like this. The way I phrase it is, I want to be able to wake up tomorrow, and one of my friends goes like, "Hey, I'm having a really tough time writing in Japan," right? And I want to be able to like go to the airport, buy a ticket to Japan, fly over, and help them with writing in the afternoon, and then stay there for like a week or something without like having to worry about, oh shit, I'm going to bankrupt myself for this. Like that's
Yeah,
what I
exactly.
want.
Freedom.
Yeah.
The freedom of
Yeah.
self-determination, the freedom of
Yeah.
financial agency, where
Yeah.
you're beholden not to a schedule, not to, like, the whims of income, but you're beholden only to your own ability to maintain what you have. And
Yeah.
there does hit a point where you gain enough money that investment creates long-term wealth, where you basically do become free. Like, let's say, for example, you write like 5 books. Each of those books gets like 500 ratings on Amazon. You make like $700,000. That's enough money that if you invest intelligently, you'll never have to work again for the rest of your life.
Yeah. I mean, like Zogoth very publicly. I mean, I'm not quite sure if we like. I mean, people know Shirt is rich. But I mean, like, let's be like, remember that 5 years ago, this guy had to worry about buying a new stick to hold up his window because it was falling down, right? So
Which, you talking about Shedlin or Zogoth?
yeah, Shirt.
Yeah, no. Shedlin
Right.
is from a very poor mining town in Tasmania. Like,
Yeah.
he's a really down to earth, normal guy who just he to hear him say it, he just got really lucky and just did the right thing at the right time.
He did. He totally did. Like, it's. I love this book. I love the series, but it hit at a very right time at the very right moment, and he's capitalizing on it because fuck, he deserves it. Like, he is a wonderful human being.
He's a really good guy.
Yeah, he's a really good guy. So the point I'm trying to make is, I forgot the point I'm trying to make.
Can a team of has-been teen idols save the world? Find out in the new series Boy Bands and Dragons. When Neverboyland is sucked into a magical world, their reunion takes a back seat to staying alive. But if they can get over the past drama that drove them apart, they may find that even pop stars can be heroes. Come and discover your new favorite read. Our comeback tour is Slaying Monsters, the first in the Boy Bands and Dragons series by Kim Smuga Otto, dropping on Kindle Unlimited, October 25th.
Like, it's good to have these goals, but it's sometimes tempting to think, oh, in the future I will be happy, without realizing that you can be happy right now, right? So if a future in which you will be happy is not worth suffering right now, because the suffering will always continue until you learn how, like, to conjure up happiness even when you're sad or angry or whatever. You will always chase that ephemeral thing. You always think that, like, hey, this freedom will get it to me, or like this wife, or this house or whatever. I don't say you have to, you must a lot, because I don't believe that I should be telling anyone what to do. But I think one of the fundamentals of life is to learn how to be okay with the situation as it is, always, even if it's hard. But that's a different topic. Coming back to the question, so in writing, in actual, like, pen to paper writing, or like fingers to keyboard writing, I guess. Just talking about, like, stylistically, or in characterization, that sort of stuff. What would you change if you could go back and change in one of your novels? Or what would you do differently if you started a new one right now?
I think stylistically, the way I use the way I use grammar and punctuation. Grammar and punctuation in some of my novels is lacking in terms of the actual hard and fast rules of English. And I've learned a lot more because I never had any formal education. I'm all self-taught. I read the Encyclopedia Britannica. Um, um, I learned from reading Lord of the Rings, Wheel of Time, Dune, etc. Like I'm all self-taught. There's no formal education in my writing whatsoever. So everything I know is based upon osmosis. And I've learned a lot about punctuation, grammar, and all that stuff in my later years that if I'd known as a younger writer would have made a lot of my writing stronger. And I think the biggest thing that I've learned recently is balancing being a pantser with outlining. Outlining has always been very incompatible with my mental state. I've never really been someone who subscribes to the idea of outlining because it's always felt very alien to my process, because my process is I'm a very linear writer. I write chapter 1 to end of the book. I don't skip ahead. I don't go back unless I'm editing. I am chapter 1, chapter 2, chapter 3 ad infinitum. That is how I write. And outlining saves you from a trap of what is essentially an infinite writing vacuum where you don't have an endpoint and you're just kind of like searching for the endpoint. Now, when I write, I have a vague understanding of what beats I need to hit in the story, of what critical moments I need to hit in the story, and that allows me to create a more formulaic approach to writing that keeps me within the bounds of necessity, as opposed to simply vomiting words into a document and then realizing that, oh shit, I need to end the story now.
The way I approach plotting, one of the things that stuck with me was when Travis Baldry was on this podcast, and he said that he hates doing things twice, so he became a plotter, even though he wants to be a pantser. And one of the things that I'm doing, or how I'm handling plotting, is I look at it like pantsing, but without bothering with the prose. So, for example, I will plot a chapter by just writing like one line for each paragraph, and I would just go like, I woke up, I wasn't feeling good, enter. I went and had breakfast, enter. This other character came in and we talked, enter. We talked about this and this and this and this, and made a bullet list, and then enter, and so on and so forth. I don't bother with any like dialogue tags or any like comma or whatever. I just write the story for this chapter, and then I go back and inflate it. So I'm trying to separate the creation and the refinement phase of writing, because everything that you're doing in a creative way has a creation phase and a refinement phase, and you want to keep them separate as much as you can. Some people can really create and refine at the same time as they're going down and writing really beautiful prose, like Pirate Abba, for example. But I'm not one of those people. I, like you, get lost in the weeds. Famously, I have written a 16-chapter fight scene once that was basically just like the same beat over and over again, because I didn't really know where to go with the story, and I was afraid to move on. Absolutely. So yeah, it sucks. It sucks donkey balls. But good news, even if you are a pantser, even if you do write these things, you can always plot at the end. That's called editing, right? So I respect you when you say you don't want to edit. I personally would never do that. There's a limit. You can edit yourself to death, just as you can plot yourself to death, or pants yourself to death. But if your audience tells you like, "Hey, the story isn't hitting," then yeah, fucking go back and edit, bruv. Like, look at it from a natural perspective. Put some like frames over it. Check, hey, am I hitting my 3-story outline? Is there like enough rising tension here? in this part here, is the mentor figure really supposed to do this, or is he supposed to do something else? Go get like really analytical, put those like cutouts or whatever on your story, see if it fits, and whatever thing that like pops out, just cut it, and then you refine the rest, and then you actually have a good story out of a bad one.
Well, an interesting thing with this is in Cataclysm Rising, my first chapter, my prologue, is action-packed. It's very heavy action, sets up the main character, sets up his struggle, gives an insight into what he was dealing with, etc. Like it's a very strong first chapter. That's what everyone says. Chapters 1 to 9 is where I have the least reader retention. And it's because it's just a lot of exposition vomit. Now, I like that. I'm the kind of person that likes reading that stuff. I like reading exposition that way. I don't like having action thrown at me nonstop because I find it very disingenuous. Not disingenuous, it's the wrong word. I find it very, like, I want to understand the world, so I write stories that are very heavy in world building. And it is a slow burn. But the biggest complaint I get from readers is the first 9 chapters are a huge slog. Because it's so much exposition, so much information. And it does mean that later on, after that slog, like the whole story just flows really easily and really naturally because all the exposition's out of the way. But and I've ridden myself into a corner in that if I rewrote that section, a lot of what happens later is inconsistent.
Yeah.
But I'm thinking of ways to work around it. But basically, it was a lesson that I learned with Cataclysm. And Cataclysm was wildly successful. I got RS #1 in like a week and a half. It was ludicrously successful. But at least compared to my other stories. But it taught me a lot of lessons in terms of balancing exposition with action, balancing pacing and narrative, etc. And I don't think I'll change that in Cataclysm. But for my next project, whatever that may be, it is a lesson that I've learned and internalized.
I, again, ironically, or not ironically, because I think often writers like write in the same like lines and learn in the same lines and learn the same things and the same steps. For me, I felt the same way. So the first version of Torchbearer, I mean, you've read it, right? So the very first version was very artsy, and it was going for this kind of like Max Gladstone, Tamsin Moyer, Patrick Rothfuss kind of feel. And I think that worked. I think it really worked. It explained nothing, and it had lots of like very cool prose in it. I think it was nice. I got 200 followers. The next version, I explained a lot more. I got 1,400 followers, which is also not like amazing, but it's all right. Right, 1,400 is like that's decent. You can do something with that. The next version had 800, and it's partially because like A, people had read the story before, and B, I think because I did too much exposition. And the thing that people say when hey it's a slog is not like people don't really want the plot. What they're saying is we don't care enough about the main character yet to work through all this exposition, right? So if I were to rewrite my beginning right now, what I would do is I would immediately make my character believable, which is I think I'm already pretty good at, but then also very competent. Like I want to be able to have like people to invest into her. I think I'm also okay-ish with that. I think I can do way better because right now she feels a little bit like a passenger, right? But I still need to work on getting people to care for her. And so you have these 3 things. It's like believe, care, invest. I'm completely stealing that from Matt Bird. But if you nail that in the start, and that's like the famous first 20% in a standard like Save the Cat format-ish, the first you just want to have like some weird like action, cool stuff to get people to believe, care, and invest into your character, and then you do the exposition dump. You fluff it up a little bit, right? But then people will stay with it because they're interested in the character and they want to know why this character is why this character is how they are. And also, in order to do that, most people will accept, hey, I have to learn some backstory here so I understand the world that this character is in. That's my solution. We'll see how it works. If it doesn't, then, well, you can come back to me and laugh at me, I guess.
I mean, yeah, writing is a constant learning process. It's you never really master it. You just get better at understanding it, and it's you're always learning something about your own writing style, about your own approach to things that can be modified and grown and changed and evolved and stuff.
I think that's a good ending point, at least for the main part of the podcast. What do you think?
Sure.
Okay.
Am I meant to talk about my books? I don't really understand what I'm meant to be doing.
Do like you're not meant to, but I would love to for you to shill out your own books once again. We learned this a little bit at the beginning. Let's go.
Well, I mean, do you have any questions about them?
No, just chill them out.
Oh God.
Max will suffice.
Oh, hilarious.
I know. Thanks.
Jesus. Yeah, it's high fantasy. Man, I'm not good at this. I don't know how to explain.
What do you like about it?
Magic, spell sword, dragons, vampires, hot elf waifus. I don't really. They're not harem. They're not harem novels, but okay. You know what? Here's a point. Everyone in lit RPG has this like. Not everyone. It's a very hyperbolic statement, but a lot of people have this like critical aversion to anything relating to romance in the RPG because, like, you know, people. What is it that Shadowlun says? Readers wanting to kill my latest female character is my Groundhog Day.
Yeah.
But people have this huge aversion to romance. I think romance makes a story more fulfilling because if it's done correctly, it can be very developmental for characters. And I don't think that I don't think there's anything wrong with monogamous romance, and I do it in one of my books, but I think that true polyamorous romance, not this weird, like, you know, like polygamy harem,
gotta catch
like,
them all.
Gotta catch them all bullshit, you know, like that, which is fine if you want to write that. No hate. I've read harem books, but for me, I'm a huge Wheel of Time fan. I know there's problematic things about Wheel of Time. I know people have issues with it. I know that some of the ways that Jordan wrote women bothers a lot of people, but the relationships between Rand and Avienda, Elmenedra, and Elaine really help to, and even Lanfear, it helps to underscore and properly define his character in ways that he couldn't do himself, Rand being the main character of Wheel of Time. And there is a very poignant element of character exploration inherent to romance that I think a lot of people are almost scared to tackle in their novels, or they avoid it due to any number of reasons, such as reader dissatisfaction, mishandling it, or in my case, a permanent fear of miswriting women. Which is why, and I've said this in my novels, and people take it this weird way, like it's some kind of justification, but it's just truth. When I write a chapter from a female POV, I have friends who are writers, like Euphridia, who writes Last Ray of Hope, which is a fantastic cozy fiction. It's not cozy. It's action, but it's fantasy cozy. It's really lovely. It's an amazing book. Definitely should check it out. Last Ray of Hope, with an E, not a Y. But Last Ray of Hope. S.M. Boyce, the author of Wraithblade. Lindsay French, the author of Quantum Demon. I've probably missed a couple people, but Dawn Chapman, obviously. But like, I don't really talk to Dawn about this stuff that much. But like, I use these incredibly talented women use probably the wrong word, but I make use of the relationship I have to bounce these chapters that I write from a female POV of these women, and I basically and Tavaga as well, and I basically ask them, hey, is this ludicrous? Is this stupid? Am I miswriting how a woman would react here? Like, is this because I'm not obviously female? I am not someone who relates to women mentally. Like, I am 100% what I guess what the kids would call a cis het male. Like, I am 1000% a dude bro. And for me, I can't put myself in the mentality of a woman because I'm not one. I don't think like one. I don't perceive the world as one. So I want to write romance, but I want to write it in a way that's respectful, that is uplifting, that honors the strengths of a female character. And some you can't satisfy everyone. Some readers just nonstop hate the way I write women, and that's fine. But for me, the security that I have is that I have a pool of very talented women writers, female authors, where I can go to them and be like, hey, I'd love some feedback on this. Tell me what's wrong with it. Tell me what's problematic. Tell me how I can make this better. Tell me if this is too male gazy. Tell me if this is too saturated with sexual innuendo, whatever it is. Like, am I over-sexualizing this character? Am I under-sexualizing this character? Because there's also the converse where a lot of male writers get so, again, a lot is a hyperbolic term, but male writers get so caught up in the source of avoiding over sexualization or avoiding on what do you call it, unintended misogyny, that they end up almost shying away from writing women characters in a narrative light. Like, for example, Reclaimer, which is again my flagship, despite its lack of followers compared to Cataclysm. Reclaimer has about I'd say a quarter of the novel, and it's about a 200,000 word novel for for Nephilim, the first book. About a quarter of that novel is dedicated to the POV of a character named Soraya. Soraya is a princess who goes through a formative period of going from basically a sheltered tower princess to, a pragmatic woman with trauma who learns to be a warrior. Like, she dreams of being a warrior, and when she actually goes out there and learns what it means to be a warrior, it's gritty, it's dirty, it's ugly, it's traumatic, it's bad. Like, it puts her through the ringer. And in the novel, I explore this evolution with her, as well as the twists and turns, as well as, the impacts of being a woman on a campaign trail, like, for example, bodily function, etc. Like, and all this stuff was put in there after I went to these female authors and I said, okay, what am I looking at here? What are my concerns? What are my issues? What am I having to cover? Like, what are the things that she would be dealing with? How would she be dealing with them? Like, give me your perspective. And the drafts that I made were usually pretty good, but there were these really key elements, like, for example, when the chapter that I dealt with the fact that she had a period, right? Like, ooh, period. But like the chapter that I dealt with the fact that she was having her period in the middle of a traumatic campaign, I focused too much on certain elements of it. And they were like, no, dial this down, but dial this up. Like, focus on this part of it. And I was like, okay, cool. So I did that. And immediately when I read it, I was like, wow, this actually reads so much better, because now it's not in your face as much, but it is a poignant part of the story. And it shows this like developmental cycle where these characters become real. And I get very uncomfortable with being the final arbitration on chapters that deal with women in fiction, because I'm not a woman and I don't know how they think. But having this resource is really good because it allows me to write romance in a way that is fulfilling both for female readers as well as for male readers, as well, and tertiary, it allows me to create a romantic arc, a framework that builds both characters. It doesn't just build the male character. It doesn't just make the women, accessories to inflate the male character's relevance. It makes them distinct, unique, compelling lead characters in their own right. And I know that I nailed this because Travis Shertaloon told me that his favorite chapters in Reclaimer were the ones that were some of the ones that followed Soraya, and he loved reading them. And I do tropes, man. Like, my books have one commonality.
Mhm.
Always, elves are horny. That is
Yeah.
that is a meme that I love putting into my novels. No matter which novel it is, if you're an elf, you're horny. You're always horny. It's just something that is just I find it so funny because it's a complete juxtaposition to Tolkien's work, where elves are like super reserved and conservative. Like, nah, my elves are hedonists always. It's just hilarious to me, and they're very much blood elves from World of Warcraft. Or to a degree, like kind of like dark elves from Warhammer Fantasy. Um, but I mess with tropes and stuff, but I don't like them to be overshadowing of the quality of the characters. And most of the mentor characters that I give to my lead characters are female. They're not male. Like Aurelian's mentor for the main part of Reclaimer Nephilim. I mean, yes, he has Balthrax, who is a gigantic ancient dragon, but he also has Trixie, who is a little, basically his the goblin aunt he never wanted, but always needed. And she just completely beats him over the head repeatedly for being an idiot. And then in Cataclysm Rising, Leonidas is. Oh, by the way, the funniest thing about Cataclysm Rising is that the main character's name, his initials spell LARP because his parents are weebs. His name is Leonidas Aurelian, Leonidas Alexander Romulus Pendragon or Pendrag, but his initials spell LARP, and that tickled me. But his mentor is basically an elven Sith Lord. No, not literally a Sith Lord, but she's a psionic warrior named Cerevial. In Heteroi, my space Greek mecha space opera, the cultural mentor for the main character, Arthur, is a Grecian high noble named Cersei. In Eternus Online, it's Isolde. In Vitaean Chronicles, it's first Talariel, and then later on is Lilith. In Trumpet Wars, it's Athena.
You're missing Crimson Star.
I'm missing what?
Crimson Star.
Oh, for Crimson Star, it is. What's her name? Hold on, I'll get it. I'll get it. Crimson Star is. Oh, what's her freaking name? Elenia. Crimson Star is Elenia, and before Elenia, it's Arcanon, who is this. Crimson Star is really cool. It's actually a project that I kind of abandoned, which kind of sucks. I should go back to that. It's actually a pretty fun story. I'll keep this very brief.
Good. You didn't, but that's okay.
No, sorry. Crimson Star is this weird experiment that I made. It's basically space horror with cultivation. It's based around the idea of these like ancient progenitor species of, I guess you call them vampires, but they're just basically cultivators who cultivate life essence to gain power. And they seeded humanity. Like a lot of the sentient races in the galaxy were seeded by them for the sole purpose of growing them into a species to harvest for essence.
Makes sense.
And that's where like a lot of our mythos about vampires and stuff come from. It's from them. So I thought that was really cool. Like basically vampires are aliens.
And that's you, like this entire like last 13 minutes was you absolutely not shutting out your stories. Great. See, there you go. You can do it.
I mean, look, if you like dragons, magic, and vampires, read Reclaimer. That's all I'll say. And if you like arena combat and psychic powers, read Cataclysm.
There you go. All right. So, with that being said, thank you everyone for watching. You know the title, like, follow, subscribe, all that kind of stuff. I might actually not be able to host an episode in 2 weeks because I just don't have the time to prepare one more episode, but it's going to be one next week, like this week, next week, and then either the one after that or the 2 ones after that, I won't be able to upload a show because I will be traveling. I'll be in Japan, and I hope that's going to be okay with you guys. But Hannibal, thank you so much for being here.
No worries. And as a final note, because it's very hard to find my stories, if you want to find them, Google Hannibal Forge, 2 words. You can probably see my name actually in the podcast. Google it for Royal Road. You'll find my stories because a lot of them are titled very strangely.
Indeed. I had to Google them a lot. All right. Thank you, everyone, for being here. And I'll see you
thanks for
next time.
doing this, Max. Like, honestly, like, your podcast is like really, really cool. I know it's not like
You ruined my outro.
Oh, fuck your outro. It's not like the Joe Rogan or anything, but like it's a very strong undertaking for the community, and I think that it does a lot for like building awareness and creating like a broader community. So I really hope you're successful. I really hope this thing takes off and goes fucking crazy, because it genuinely is an incredibly valuable part of the lit RPG movement, in my opinion.
Thank you. Okay. Can I do my outro now? Can I do that? Am I allowed to do it?
I'll allow it.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, everyone, for being here, for listening and watching, and I'll see you next time. And if you're on Patreon, maybe I'll give you another 5 minutes, because holy shit, this podcast is only 2 hours and 11 minutes. And we cannot pull another short loom here because I'm really hungry. It's like 1 o'clock.
Wait, what's wrong? 5? What do you mean 5
I'm
minutes?
hungry. Because usually the podcast goes for like 2 hours, and we're already 11 minutes over.
Okay, so what am I meant to do? Say bye?
No. We're going to talk for like 5 more minutes. Yeah, or maybe not. Maybe we'll say bye. Maybe the podcast people on the Patreon have already gotten what their money's worth. But yeah, I think it's going for the best, because I'm really getting hungry.
When does this go online? When can I send this to my friends to watch me stutter through an interview?
I think this week is Alex Night. Next week.
Oh, okay, neat.
I hopefully will be able to like upload it from Japan, but we'll see how the net is there.
Yeah.
Because I'll be like in some sort of weird hotel.
Cool.
Okay.
Oh, are you going to Lit Up PGCon?
Yes.
I'll see you there.
I am not a guest, but I have been sent an invitation. As always, I am moving in the shadows behind the scenes, which is why I like more than I don't think I need to stand in the spotlight as much.
I'll just be the tall giant lurking with Haylock and Shadowloon and not knowing anybody.
Oh, we can have a little battle between you and Andy. Andy is a friend of Haylock and mine.
Andy K?
And I think also Shirt now.
Andy K?
Yeah.
I know him, yeah.
Yeah. And we can see who's bigger, I guess.
I look like Jason Momoa, but from Wish. I don't know if you have my girlfriend giggle at that. Yeah, it's like, I want Jason Momoa. We have Jason Momoa at home. That's funny.
Exactly. Well, your girlfriend looked out. Anyway. Oh my God. I know I promise not to be mean. I don't mean this in a mean way, but it is a fun joke. But I really think like autistic Jason Momoa might be like a really good tagline.
I mean, you know what? You're not wrong. And my girlfriend looks like, what's her name? That Daphne from Bridgerton.
Oh.
Yeah.
Okay. I have no idea if that's an insult or not, because I haven't watched Bridgerton.
No, she's hot.
Okay, cool. Okay, good. Like Daphne or your girlfriend?
Both.
Thanks for the pause. All right. let's end it here. All right. Thank you.
Thanks, Max.
Yeah. Stay in for a second, because I need to upload this still. And we have a little of an end chat, but I'm gonna end the episode here. We're gonna cut this part out. Right. Thanks, Patreons, for being here. I really hope you enjoyed this. This has been a really long episode. And as I said, there might be one episode that won't be released on time, but or 2. But I hope you forgive me. I will try and make it up to you somehow. Anyway, thank you guys for listening and watching, and I'll see you next time.
Bye.